Hey, Steph. How are you?
Nice to see you, John. Good. How are you?
Good, good. I take it you can hear me okay, or?
I can, yes. I'm just adding Ed and Sanjay in. And everyone else, great to see you all joining. We'll officially start in about 10 minutes, so feel free to make yourself comfortable. Ed, John, and Sanjay, if you want to change your background, just click the 3 buttons at the bottom of the screen and go to settings, and you can adjust your background only if you want to.
May just stick with regular.
Steph, can you hear me?
I can now, Sanjay. I can hear you, but I can't see you.
Yeah, it's not letting me. Yeah, it's not allowing my camera.
Okay, let's see. Do you want to log out and log back in?
That's what I tried, but
Okay. Let me check your settings on my end.
it's on my end.
Okay.
It's on my end. Yeah, it's not letting me allow camera. But you can hear me properly? Can you hear me properly? Stephanie, can
Yep,
you hear me?
and sorry, I was on mute. Yes, I can hear you just fine. I'm trying to troubleshoot for you right now.
Ed Parker is not.
Hey, Sanjay, I can see you now. I think you're on mute, though. I can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Great. Yep. And I'm trying to let Ed in as well. I have the presentation being shared. And I think while we might all need to mute while the other person is talking. All right. Everyone speaking has joined. I think as a best practice, we'll just mute if we're not speaking so there's no background feedback. Ed, would you like to share the presentation or do you want me to share it?
My computer's coming back up. Give me a second. Let me see if I can get it up again.
Or you can always just tell me when to go to the next slide. That's fine too.
Fine. If you want to share it, that's fine.
Okay, I think it's already up. Oh, it's not sharing. Hold on. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining. This is Stephanie from Farragut. We're going to give it one more minute. Ed Parker, one of our speakers, is just going to reconnect, and then we'll kick it off. We're excited to have you all here today. Okay.
Hear me?
I can hear you. Awesome.
Yeah,
I think
that
we're
was
ready
an
to go.
adventure.
Every time I share the slideshow, I think it kicks you off it. So I'm just going to leave it as is, and we'll just talk through it if that's okay.
Okay, it may have been, I don't know if I had it open or I closed it, but for whatever reason, I'll take it.
We'll just troubleshoot along the way. Well, welcome everyone who's attending today's webinar on navigating the future of technology and property tax. So my name is Stephanie Zimmerman. I'm with Farragut, and we're really excited to have a conversation with experts in the field. So one thing we do at Farragut is have something called an innovation lab, where we bring together tax assessors, treasurers, software developers, engineers, people who have worked in the business side and development of property tax space, to have conversations around how can you best harness the power of your data and make better data-driven decisions. So one thing that we love to do is have conversations with tax offices, no pressure, just to learn what challenges are you facing, what could make it better, and together dream up a solution that makes your team more efficient, your data more transparent, and taxpayers happier. So with that, I'd love to make a few introductions and really dive into the topic that we have at hand today. But we do want to make it a conversation. If there's like a certain issue that your office or your team is facing, and you're like, hey, we don't know how to connect Power BI with our data, or we're not sure how to answer these questions that homeowners are presenting to us, put it in the chat. We'll try to get to it throughout this hour-long conversation, but if not, we're always happy to set up a one-on-one with our team and really work through and try to help you find a solution to move your team forward. So with that, I'd love to introduce John Burgess. He joined our panel at IAAO in Salt Lake City, where many of us fell ill with COVID and weren't able to attend. So John really led the show there. We had a great conversation. So John, I don't know if you want to just give a little background about what your county is doing in North Carolina, and then I'll go on to the next introduction.
Sure. Thank you, Stephanie. John Burgess from Forsyth County, North Carolina. We're about the fourth or fifth largest county in the state. And we're certainly always interested in having the best data we can for appraisal purposes, maintaining that data. And I think, like most of you on this phone call, you've probably also, over the last several years, experienced a lot of staff turnover or change in your staff. And so those are probably the two topics for me that we see facing us today. And so happy to be a part of the conversation. Thanks for having me.
Thank you, John. I appreciate it. Another star of our panel in Salt Lake City was Ed Parker, who's a former deputy assessor himself out of North Carolina, but now heads up product development at Farragut. So Ed, do you want to give a little background on yourself?
Yeah, I spent about 14 years working in a mid-sized county in North Carolina. Eventually, I was fortunate enough to be in the position of the assistant assessor, where I worked there for a couple of years. But the scope of what I wanted to do was bigger than one county, and I really wanted to step into a position where I could leverage my experience, my background, the challenges that I saw, the things that I'd learned to help as many counties as I could. And so I came to work at Farragut about 7 years ago, coming up on 7 years ago, and have enjoyed working with John and other counties like him in building out a property tax system specifically for North Carolina, and many other projects as well. So.
Thank you, Ed. And Sanjay, I would love to have you talk more about yourself. Sanjay leads up our innovation at Farragut and has a lot of ideas around the new emerging technologies coming out and what that looks like for your teams and how you can best harness that new technology. So Sanjay. I think you're on mute.
Sorry. Thanks, Stephanie. So my name is Sanjay Chauhan, and I am with Farragut from last 21 years. And then after doing masters in computer application, my whole life is in this property tax domain. So I love this domain, and at the same time, I love technology. So I want to bring all these new technological solutions for the people who are in this domain.
Excellent. Thanks all. So I'll kick it off with a few questions, but I really see this unveiling as a conversation, and we'll take questions as they come in from all the attendees on this webinar. But Sanjay, do you want to start us off by talking a little bit about the new technologies that are emerging in this space and what that looks like?
Sure. So in property tax domain, right now, several technological trends are emerging. But today I'll discuss three top relevant areas to the property tax domain. And when I think about them, they are, number one that come in my mind is data management. The second is data analytics and visualization. And third, let's call it mass processing. So number one, data management. So as a property tax people, we deal with various kind of data. We deal with numerical, text, or GIS data, photos, image. So the trend that I see, the trend is toward democratizing the data. And what does that mean? That in future, property tax professional do not need to worry about where to store the data. They can store the data on various locations, on-prem, Azure, Microsoft Azure, AWS, Google, wherever. And then technology will ensure its accessibility and connectivity across the platform. And one recent example, I work more on Microsoft technology, so my examples will come from that side. Recent example is Microsoft Fabric. They are bringing the concept of OneDrive in data storage, and they are calling it One Lake. It means you can store various kind of data there. You can access data from other platform, and other platform can access that data. So that's the trend. You don't need to worry about data, storing the data, where to store the data. Second is data analytics and visualization. So again, analytics is not new for property tax domain. Analytics was there from long time. The trend is that the analytics tools such as Power BI, Tableau, Click, they are becoming more and more powerful, and they are evolving to provide real-time analytics, and also they are incorporating built-in formulas for advanced statistical analysis. My colleague Ed Parker can talk about it more. He has done a few things in this area. So, and these kind of analytical tools will help property tax assessment professional to satisfy their business need. And third area is this mass processing. And this is interesting because artificial intelligence and machine learning, they are playing big role there. They are significantly enabling the creation of a smart tool for efficient data processing in property tax assessment. Techniques like we can talk about computer vision, or we can even talk about LLM, large language models. They are leveraging all this AI and ML algorithm behind the scene and processing data and providing predictive insights, and becoming more and more prevalent. So increased use of AI is another trend for mass processing.
That's a great point, Sanjay. Ed, so I'm wondering, as you work directly with partners of Farragut, and we keep hearing this trend of AI, and as these technologies are emerging, how do you responsibly use that technology so that you know the data is safe and accurate, and that your customers and partners feel secure in moving forward with these new technologies that are coming out?
I think that's a multi-layered answer to that question. I think one of the most important things, and I was fortunate enough to be able to do a presentation at IAAO on data science, and one of the most important things, and it's foundational for AI and everything else, is all these tools that we're talking about now rely on the underlying data, and there's no one who's going to be a more fluent speaker of the accuracy and quality of the data that's underneath all of these tools than the people who are generating the data, which is typically the tax office, unless, and sometimes with some third-party data sets. So I think knowing your data, knowing its quality, what its weaknesses are, what its strengths are, is going to be critical to leveraging these, because there are certain places where you will not want to use a tool because you don't feel like your data is adequate to support that tool. So understanding, first of all, like quality of your data, that's foundational, and then understanding what the tool that you're using, whether it's AI, machine learning, which is another form of that, or those are similar, or some other statistical analysis, understanding what the weaknesses and the strengths of those particular tools are and how they're to be used, and where they're not to be used, is critical going forward as well. So if you're going to be, talking about responsibility, it all falls back to us as the people who are generating the data and the people who are creating the tools, that we have a very collaborative conversation about what we can actually accomplish with that, and make sure that the answers that we're deriving from the data are supported by underlying structures as far as the tools and the data.
Awesome. John, I see you shaking your head. So as one of the larger counties in North Carolina, and you've pioneered in this space with your team, do you want to share some of your learnings and what you think about the data coming into these new emerging technologies?
Sure. Certainly it's interesting that Sanjay's two of his top three things are data, and then Ed's talking about different aspects of data. And so as the tax office is the creator of an enormous amount of data. And so I think a lot of our technology needs to be focused on understanding our own jurisdictions and our strengths and weaknesses of our own data. I know several years ago, the North Carolina Department of Revenue instituted a process of random sampling that we have to go out before conducting reappraisals to measure the accuracy of our appraisal data. And so that process that's now ingrained in all 100 counties for several years has been very beneficial, helping us understand our strengths and weaknesses in our own data. The thing that I've seen more over the last several years are our data has always been available, but now it's even more accessible or more able to be analyzed by different techniques. And so you don't know who's analyzing your data, but they are. And they certainly may not even be analyzing it the way we would agree it should be analyzed. But if our data is not accurate, we have no chance of producing good appraisals. Your reappraisal is never going to be any better than your data, right? If you have okay data, you're never going to have better than an okay reappraisal. And so the being able to use technology through, it could be through queries, dashboards, data mining tools, anything that helps us understand our own data, especially that objective data that needs to be rock solid, making sure that our computer systems have fail safes in them for not allowing inaccurate data, right? Where that is reasonable to do. So I think having amazing data and being able to understand our weaknesses and to use technology to improve our weaknesses will help us a whole lot, because in the end, it helps us do a better job appraising, but also it at least helps not provide the public with bad information that's being analyzed. They may not analyze it the way we like to, but we've certainly got to make sure that the data that we have is very accurate. And so that's the sort of the focus point that I look for as an assessor is ways to make sure that our data is accurate, whatever that is, whether it's a brand new technology through AI or something, or even maybe it's an older technology that we've not that we need to newly implement. Either way, to me, is new technology is beneficial in our industry.
John, I'd like to add something, just something that kudos to you and your team at Forsyth and our interactions. And since we began working together, one of the things I've always found admirable is that Forsyth has never shied away from sharing your data publicly. You put that out there, and your perspective has always been, if you find something wrong, we want to know about it. It's not let's hide the data, but let's get it out there, because all of your public, if they point out something and make the data more accurate, then everybody benefits from that. So I think putting the data out there and making it visible is, it's a benefit in that you have now thousands of eyes looking at that data at times and giving you updated information if they find anything correct, which then makes your ultimate products, your reappraisal, and your values much more accurate. Other thing that you mentioned, and this came up in several conversations at IAAO, and it's something that's maybe a little bit new in the sense that there's growing pressure outside of the property tax field to use these particular technologies such as AI and ML, particularly because there are companies and individuals and businesses who are starting to use this on their own. And as you mentioned, sometimes analyzing data that in ways that you wouldn't consider appropriate or accurate. But internally, the tax offices are going to have to become, in a way fluent or capable within these technologies, because I hate to put it this way, but to defend themselves, because others are going to be using those technologies to draw conclusions and analyze and make statements about the data, about the processes, about the tax office. And it's becoming incumbent that you guys have the capability internally to be able to use those tools as well.
Sanjay, can you talk a bit about the process that we go through with one of our partners to make sure that the data is more accurate, more clean, more transparent? You're on mute.
So when we work with our partners, we first try to understand their data, because understanding the data is the most important thing. So recently we had one experience. We were working with one of our partner, and what we understood by analyzing their data, that the main problem is the data is there are two main problems. One is like their data is inaccurate, and then their data is incomplete. So how do we provide our solutions so that we can make their data complete and accurate? So that's where we started building our platform, where we created one place where we can bring all kind of data together. And then we started creating another tools there where we can visualize that data. So that's the process for identify inaccuracy and incompleteness on the data. And then from there, various other tool emerges, like Power BI dashboards. There are AI ML tool for finding the outliers, anomalies. But most important thing is data and these discovery sessions with the customer.
Yeah, and I'll add to that, Sanjay. There is a if you would, a trifecta, a triangular conversation that happens if you're going to have a really effective process or product, and that takes into account three components. There's the data understanding, which is knowing exactly what's in the data and what quality it is and how accurate and how recent. And then there's the business understanding. It's understanding the business processes that data comes from and how it's being utilized and what it's going to be used for. And then the third piece of that conversation is the technology understanding. And that's picking out the right tool to get to whatever objective that your project or your process is trying to achieve. So there has to be all three of those voices at the table. And if any one of those is weak or missing, it's going to have a negative impact on your final outcome. So if you're evaluating a project or you're considering something, that's something to look at. Are all three of those perspectives at the table as you're going forward with the project?
And John, I know that your team recently went through this where you all were collaborating on a specific challenge, and it got you to a whole different framework where you guys are now tackling equity and fairness and like a lot of hot topics within the property tax space. Did you want to talk more about how you all got there and determined the best way forward?
Yes, thanks. I was getting ready to actually say something about that. Part of, I guess my mantra here is, as we want to embrace technology, but I also would say that it doesn't have to be the newest, hottest, latest. What it needs to be is the best fit for what your needs are. And so I know that in that conversation, Stephanie, we can do a good job meeting IAAO standards in our appraisals, assuming we have enough sales in our market areas. But we can meet those basic standards. And so what we have to do is, while those are minimum standards, we've got to go beyond those, and we've got to make sure that substrata data inside of those market areas is meeting assessment levels that are appropriate as well, and other statistical measures. And so one of the ways that we've recently kind of embarked on that in a way that is we have some dashboards set up that when the appraiser gets done with the market area, they've done their work and they say they're done, then within about an hour or so, we're able to in the background run other assessment ratios based on other substrata of data. Like inside of a residential market area, we might look at, how do our one-story homes compare to our multi-story homes, or how do homes with a basement compare to non-basement sales, and things like that, to check our assessment levels to make sure we're within range on those substrata topics. And while certainly our appraisers can run that sales ratio themselves inside our system, it can be a little inefficient to have them run 7 or 8 other sales ratios, looking for this occurrence that, quite frankly, most of the time doesn't exist. When they're done with their work, it doesn't yield that there was a problem. But the reality of it is we have that responsibility to make sure that we're doing a great job on every property inside that market area. And so by using things like dashboards in the background, what we're doing is basically saying, well, we know what the technology is of a sales ratio, but we're trying to put the efficiency measure up so that we're not asking the appraiser to spend time running those other substrata ratios, and we're letting the dashboard do that for us. And then the appraiser and our managers can easily see on certain categories, or is this something we need to address? Are we okay here? But that is very efficient. And so to me, that's a new technology. Incorporating something like that sits on top of and looks at our data, and then in a very efficient way displays the information we need to make sure that we're not missing a subcomponent of a market area, or if you can look at that however you want to, countywide or whatever. But that's been one way that we've incorporated technology. It may not be the most exciting and flashy in some ways. I'm very excited about it. And I know that it's helping us produce good results, but to me, it's a very solid approach to how we can elevate our sales, elevate our appraisals.
And you just made a very valid and important point, John, because when I was working at Henderson County and in all the counties I've worked with, I've never met a county that said we just don't have enough to do. There's always something out there that you wish you could have gotten to, or if you had one more resource, or if the day was 1 hour longer, we would do this. So a highly appropriate use of technology isn't necessarily to find some new thing or a new functionality that you never had before. It's just as appropriate to allow you to get to something you already are in a much more efficient and effective manner. Because like I said, there's always something else out there waiting to be done. There's always one more thing you could check that you wish you to check later.
It allows us to use our resources to their fullest potential, right? And to be able to let appraisers focus on appraising the difficult items and helping them understand that they're okay on some other things. Anything you can eliminate or make them feel good about that item's covered, well, then that just gives them opportunity to cover something else that needs their attention. Sort of a shift in resources.
I think you bring up a really good point. Since COVID and the major part of the pandemic hit, and so much institutional knowledge was lost when people left or retired early, that really hit government hard, because you tend to see government employees staying longer because they're there for a purpose and they're there for, to make their communities better. But when these people who've been there a long time leave, a large part of knowing your data goes with that. So it's great to have these tools in place to, one, alleviate some of the extra workload on remaining employees, but then two, keep that institutional knowledge stored somewhere that you can actually visualize it and see it in a more easier manner.
Yeah, and I would say one thing, like I liked what John said, like, the right use of technology. It's not like something shiny. So I'm very thankful having the guidance of Ed and John while creating these kind of technological solutions. See, in terms of data management, there are various technologies out there. Data lake house. There are so many things out there. But how to use that technology to clean and complete this data, that's very important. At the same time, there are so many data visualization tools are there. But what to visualize, that's very important. and at the same time, what kind of results we want to create from all these AI and machine learning tools. That's really important. So it's technology is there, but how to use it, what to use it, that kind of guidance is very important here.
And another thing that's key in that, and it goes back to understanding the technology, is that as Sanjay was mentioned, there's a lot of visualization tools in there out now. A lot of things are changing that, in a way, not only democratizes data storage and data, but democratizes analytics. But that's a cautious tale as well, because sometimes that can essentially just be an accelerator that gets you to an erroneous conclusion faster. So you want to be very careful that you understand. And I know Power BI is a good example. It's a very powerful platform. There's a lot of things that you can do at your fingertips, but you can also make some very unobvious mistakes. Ask me how I know, as I've worked my way through this, that can give you data and you think it says one thing, and then later, as you dig further back, you realize there's something going on in the way the data was modeled or some other functionality like that that's shading or coloring that data in a particular manner and leading you down an erroneous path. So there's cautious there that, this goes back to the data again. You should assume the position that your data is always worse than you think it is. And having done, in our position, quite a few migrations from different platforms and all that, that's always the case. And I was one of those migrations. So finding out that there's something in your data that you never expected is more the norm. So there's a value to understand the technology. There's a value to that, but there's also a value about being a little bit of a pessimist when you come to that, and asking questions that, multiple ways to validate a conclusion that you're coming to.
John, as you've done more data visualization with your team, how has that been for the implementation? Can you talk us through any best practices that you've learned or any tips and tricks when you're introducing something newer to your team?
Sure. Maybe I'll see if I answer your question here. But one of the things that we try to do here is to keep things simple or consistent as best we can. And so when we think about visualizing data, we have sort of a scheme of colorization that we like to use and be consistent with, so that no matter what we do, if there's a high number, a number above 1 or something, that as it gets higher, those numbers are red in color, orange, yellow, orange, red, and ascending like that. And if they're low or below 1, they're going through the shades of blue to darker blue, something like that. And so I know that sounds real simple. It's not hard to figure those things out, but what it does is I think it provides a baseline that the appraiser that you're asking to use this new technology or to look at this visualized data, that you're not asking them to do 2 or 3 things in their mind. They're able to not have to learn a new color sequence or whatever. They're able to just focus on the data that you're trying to present them in the best way. And so we do. I think the details about little things like that are very important. It makes it easier on your staff, makes it easier on me as I get a little older and maybe forget a few things here and there. I don't have to keep all that in my mind. But I would just say using any kind of little trick like that might be a cheap answer, but I think it's been effective.
Awesome. And I just added a poll to see if anyone else on here is using different data visualization tools. But I think I might have ended it too early, so I apologize about that. I'll republish it. But curious to know what tools that you may be using or are interested in using. So we're looking forward to learning more about what you all who are attending the webinar are using.
Stephanie, if I could say one more thing, if that's all right. One thing that the technology does afford us is the ability to look, the ability to experiment or to see. And so, part of at the IWO conference, it was great presentations on all kinds of technology and connecting things back to AI or connecting things back to sort of the social impacts of real estate appraisal, property tax. But some of those things I look at and I think, well, in a way they're problematic for me because of some of the laws in North Carolina, which are amazing and great laws. But some of them are restrictive a little bit in, I can't free flow how I want to appraise a piece of property, for example. I have to have certain parameters and things like that. So some of the ways that people are valuing or coming up with value options through AI and things like that, I'm really excited about those because they really afford us the opportunity that may not be, in my case, a way that I value property, that I actually send that notice out to the property owner. But it may be someday. But for now, at least, I have the opportunity to let that sit on top of my data to do a third or fourth or fifth version of a value. And the fact that some of it might be a little bit black box in its appraisal approach, that's not as concerning when I'm just using it for a check figure to help me go find the areas that are in need, that are problematic, to where I can spend our human capital resources on solving those problems. So it is an exciting time to be in our industry, to be able to have technology that is in some ways getting cheaper. So I'm excited about those type things because we have some real concerns in our industry, and certainly technology is going to be an important role to helping us do really solid appraisals going forward. But that's just a component we hadn't really talked about. I don't know if you wanted to go that way, but just the fact that it doesn't have to always make sense that I plug it in fully. It's just the fact that there's something there that it can help me do a better job and identify where I need to spend more resources.
I think that's a great point.
I think there's something that's kind of a corollary to that on a much more individual level, and I think Stephanie, you may have touched on this earlier, is that one of the changes that we see and we're seeing across all of our partners is the exodus of a large amount of experience and knowledge and understanding from the offices as people are retiring and younger folks are coming in. They don't quite typically stay around as long. This may be a stopgap for them or something else. And so one of the challenges in my role as product management director for Farragut is I'm looking ahead is how do we build in a responsible way the guidance that an appraiser, a younger appraiser, might have gotten from a more experienced appraiser into the application in a way that captures that so the offices don't lose that and can still continue to draw on that kind of experience, but it's available to that appraiser in a way that doesn't replace them or do away with them. There's always a human element in there, but advises them in a way that makes them a more effective appraiser or whatever role they have within the tax office process. I think that's going to be a key value for products going forward. Did you have something, Sanjay? I thought I heard you say something.
Oh no, keep going.
Okay, that's it.
I think you're talking about sort of the why behind the what, right, of the data, and that can be lost in transition as staffing changes. And I'm not personally sure how to incorporate the two things, but some way that we can try to do that. You're hitting this button to run this analysis. That's great. Here's why. Here's what's behind the scenes that is helping you. This is why you would hit this button. This is why you would run this analysis. Some kind of little chat thing or something that comes up to help us, kind of lead us down the path and kind of getting those theories in in our brain and see the connection between those theories and appraisal and the data that we're doing.
And maybe even a hint that you might want to run this analysis, having, you know, in the software, just looking over the data, saying there might be something here you want to look at. You know, that kind of information at someone's fingertips, where they might not have the experience to see that immediately upon looking at a neighborhood or seeing the changes in that neighborhood, but putting it in the software in a way that, or in a tool in a way that can be accessed by someone and allow them to be a more effective contributor of value within the tax office.
And then Ed, I think you and we talked a few weeks before that there are apprehensions related to AI. You know, there are not legal, or there are some anxiety there. So how to navigate in this these times? You know, how to create solutions that can take advantage of these latest new technology, but at the same time, you know, it's not going too far. And what came out from our discussion that there are 4 areas here. One is data itself. Second is data visualization and analytics. And third is these smart tools. John, you are saying like how technology can be used to make us more efficient, you know. And then fourth is, in my mind, is AI and all those kind of, I think you are pointing value, predicting the value of the property, kind of those areas. So in these times when this fourth area, which is related to AI, is not so solid, we can navigate in a way like we can utilize all these new technology to make our data meaningful, you know, make our data solid. We can utilize Power BI or all these data visualization tools to convert raw data into insightful data. And at the same time, we can utilize these machine learnings to create some very smart tool, which will make our county staff more and more efficient. And by doing these 3 things, we create the foundation for fourth one. Whenever it is solid, we will be ready to utilize it at its full potential. So that's how it comes to my mind.
I think that's a really great point that the 3 of you are just discussing. So I'm a non-technical person, right? My background is sales and marketing. So I can't tell you how to write computer code unless you go back to MySpace back when I was in high school. But beyond that, beyond HTML, I can't really tell you like why does this equal this and why is this process important. But I think that this discussion right here is an example of when you have a tool like Power BI that your team may have access to, or your team may be using some other data visualization platform. If you don't understand the why behind it, as John was referring to, if you don't understand this is being done this way in order to get this result, it's not going to be nearly as effective. So when you partner with experts in the field and you have conversations and you can bring your team around that and have them truly understand the foundational learnings and the reason for why X, Y, and Z process is important, that is so much more powerful and helpful to your team than just plugging it into the newest tool and hoping for the best result.
I think when I used to work in the tax office, my rule of thumb was, could I explain this to my grandmother and her understand it? And if the answer is no, it's probably not going to fly, no matter how nice it is. And I think that's one of the challenges that we face with AI is even if you can have access to it, can you explain it? Can you explain what it's doing? Can you explain it to your grandmother in a way that she would understand it and accept the answer that it gave you? And John, I think that's one of the things that we often think about. Could I defend this value if it were appealed? Saying, well, the computer told me so isn't the right answer there. So you're going to have more understanding, more clarity, more grasp of the underlying fundamentals of that process before you can utilize it well.
It's interesting. I just published the results of the poll. So the question was, are you currently using a data visualization tool? And 22% of the audience says yes, Power BI. 11% says yes, AIRS Analytics. And that's the Farragut solution. 16% said yes, other, and 50% said no, we're still exploring our options. So I thought that was really, I think it's a really hot topic right now, is how do you best visualize your data? But at the core of it, really, from what I'm hearing from the three of you, is that your team needs to be on board with that why, with that foundational aspect, so that you can best harness the power of these tools and really get results that you can easily explain to a homeowner when appeal season comes up, and easily explain, hey, this is fair and equitable because we did X, Y, and Z, to really show that you're going above and beyond to be as transparent and fair as possible to the taxpayer in your county or your parish or whatever jurisdiction you represent.
And I would say I had an interesting conversation the other day, something, under the whole topic of navigating change and how you implement that. The time window for becoming fluent and capable in these particular technologies is rapidly shrinking. I use the example that if you've seen these videos on YouTube, your kids bring them in of people dropping Mentos in a Diet Coke and it explodes everywhere. AI is like that Mentos. It's an accelerator. It's starting to do things that are, or enable people to do things that were literally unheard of before. The whole data science industry is being transformed, and significantly since Microsoft's conference earlier in the year, where they announced the availability of ChatGPT based tools within their platforms and within their programming environments and things of that nature, that this is going to transform faster than anything we have ever seen to date as far as technology. I think World Economic Forum is calling it the fourth industrial revolution. So we've got a spectator's view of all this change happening, and I'm amazed, because it's almost weekly now that something new is coming out, or we can now do this that we couldn't do before, this new technology, and it's putting pressure on both technology companies and tax offices and other government agencies to jump in with both feet into those technologies and get fluent in them, because they're making their way into our world and our processes, whether we want them to or not. So.
We have a few minutes left. I don't know if anyone has questions that's attending the webinar. There's a Q&A box that you can type questions directly into the chat. We're happy to answer any of those. Of course, if you do want to troubleshoot and go over a scenario one, I'm happy to connect you all with Sanjay and Ed to talk through what that looks like for your team. There's no pressure, but we're happy to do that with you all. It's just sort of the Farragut way that we just love to have conversations, because we learn just as much from those conversations as we like to propose with solutions. So. John, any last thoughts about data visualization and all these new technologies coming out, and how you've seen that work for your team?
Well, I've always loved our industry. Appraising properties is a puzzle, right? Or it's a mathematical problem that we're trying to solve, and so I've always been intrigued by that. I know people on the phone call are the same way, and so I'm excited about some of the opportunities we have that we can use in the face of some pressures that are there, that are real, that we need to be concerned about regarding the analysis of our appraisal work and fairness and equity for all. And to me, it's just the finding that right fit for your jurisdiction. I know in North Carolina, we've got jurisdictions that have as few as probably 15, 18,000 parcels in the whole county, right? And some have hundreds and hundreds of thousands. But we have the whole gamut, but we all work under the same set of laws. We all have the same responsibility set, and we've got to be just as good as we should be. And so I think just finding that responsible mix of your jurisdiction's needs, what we are facing, and what technology is available to you, and plugging those things in the right way, and in a way that we understand the why, that we can outlive some of the turnover in our industry, that we've got to be able to sustain good practices, best practices in appraisal. And technology has been helping us here in Forsyth County for decades and decades. And so we look forward to the next generation of that as well.
Awesome. Any last thoughts, Ed?
Yeah, I was just thinking back that, I cut my teeth in the tax department, actually starting in the IT department, so supporting software, and then became a database administrator. And as part of that, I ended up doing a lot of data analysis. Didn't know I was doing data analysis at the time, or data science, but that's what I was doing. And as I think back on that and the challenges that we faced in the office, the things that I went through, the processes we built to get to sometimes just rudimentary and fundamental answers that we needed. And then I look ahead at what the technology is out there. I am very excited about where things are going. I see a horizon where tax offices are going to have more capabilities, more insights, more opportunities to be accurate, to refine their processes than have ever been possible. In North Carolina, we had John was talking about that. We had our legislation was originally around an 8-year reappraisal cycle, because the technology at the time, that was about all you could do, was an 8-year reappraisal cycle. And now that's changed so much in the last few years, that that's no longer an issue. But now it's this new technology has opened up a greater horizon to be even more effective than looking at just reappraisal cycles, but reappraisal processes and everything else. I'm looking forward to seeing how legislation keeps up with those changes. So.
Appreciate that. Sanjay, any last thoughts?
Yeah, I'm really very much excited seeing all these kind of technological changes that are happening, and definitely they will improve work efficiency a lot in property tax domain also. It's just like, how do we navigate them? And I'm thankful having the guidance of Ed, John, each tax professional, for creating the solution, a right use of the technology in these areas at the right time. So I'm really thankful and excited for the future.
Well, John, Sanjay, and Ed, I really appreciate your time and your insights. And everyone on the webinar, thank you for participating in the poll, leaving a comment. We really appreciate it. And as part of our innovation lab, we're always curious and we want to learn with you and understand that what are the challenges you're seeing. So for instance, Davis, I see that you guys are looking at potentially getting into the data visualization aspect of it. If you ever want to meet with our team and go over like, hey, these are the challenges that we have, we're happy to just have our innovation team come in, brainstorm with you. It's not a sales pitch at all. It's truly an innovation lab where we sit down, we just brainstorm, we try to find solutions that would work directly with your team. And it's really amazing to see the results that come out of that, because that makes our products better. But ultimately, we want to benefit your team in your office. So you'll get an email after this with the recording of the webinar. It will have my email address in it. You can always reach out at any time. I'll connect you directly to Sanjay, Ed, and our team, and you can ask any questions you want. We can do something virtually. We can do it in person, whatever works for your office, just to help you brainstorm where you want to go and roadmap out your future and how to use these tools most effectively. Awesome. Well, we appreciate everyone's time. Feel free to send me an email at any time, and we look forward to seeing you at more IWAO events. Thanks all.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good day.